Greetings and welcome back. We have another session today in the Science is the New Religion script with Michael in Germany. Today is Saturday, July 3rd, 2021. Welcome, Michael.
Hello, dear Brett, and hello, dear listeners out there trying to improve my English another time. And for the time being, you have to stick with me. But Brett will help me out from one time to another in the session 15 of our subject, Is Science the New Religion? ? And it has a severe reason why I didn't put the question mark behind the religion here, because I think we can solve it soon. This is session 15, Babylon, part 2.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Great.
Yeah, sure. We weren't finished. We have just made the start.
I see. So yes, and you could almost say mystery because of the modern context that people don't want to look to the past because that's old, Michael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you see that also the ancient history of mankind is old, and
it sure is.
You have to go back to understand the future. Yeah, if you will see why history is repeating, actually. This is a very famous picture here by the painter of Bruegel. It's the Tower of Babel, left side. In the middle section, you see an advertisement, actually. It looks like an advertisement for Freemasonry with all the satanic downward pointing pentagrams. In Europe, many tongues, one voice. And on the right side, the last picture, you see the European Union Parliament located in Strasbourg, which means
Michael,
it has not...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it has not been completed yet, and it is not about to be completed because it is a resemblance of the Tower of Babel.
I just wanted to say, Michael, you know that reference you made about Freemasonry. That is the what do they call that again? The Eastern Star, something. The Eastern Star. What is it?
Yeah. Also, there is an Order of the Eastern Star. Was an Order of the Eastern Star.
It's morning for me. I apologize. There are going to be rough mornings sometimes.
But just that you
this
see
is one of them.
Just that you see the resemblance of it. You see that the Tower of Babel has something to do with the politics as well, especially, or at least in the European United Union. Yeah, that's my point of it.
That's really interesting. You bring that up, politics, because had one of my best friends who reads the Bible come over here, and he was talking politics. I'm like, look, buddy, I hate politics. I hate it. And he says, well, gee, you should maybe learn how to like it or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, forget it. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I am on YouTube, Michael, is because of my disdain for politics.
Yeah, we will left out politics for a certain time, but it will get back because politics as well as is related to religion. Especially, for example, in Germany, the biggest political party is the so-called Christian Democratic Union. You see, you cannot leave it out of politics.
Well, it's interesting how words are, Michael, because you have poly and then you have tick. And you know what a tick is? A tick will latch onto you and just suck the lifeblood out of you. And, when you have many of them, then they're all over the place. So there's your politics.
Actually, it is derived from a Greek word, if I am correct.
Oh, yeah, it's all about polity. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but anyway, we won't go into that. That's just an absurd topic anyway to begin with. But yeah, Michael, Babylon is sure something else. I mean, that's really where it's at, isn't it?
Yeah. You see, the trouble starts when the Bible speaks of mystery Babylon the Great, or the mother of harlots. It doesn't speak well of Babylon. It's quite the opposite, which means that it is the opposition for the real belief. It is the false God, the false belief, everything is false. This is the opposition of correct, which means it would play in the hands of the adversary of God, which is Satan. Yeah, frankly spoken, you see that everything is Babel is more or less a synonym, a word speaking out for bondage, for captivity of the Israelites because they have not served God, which means it is a tower where Satan dwells. Yeah? It is bondage of, when it is bondage of the full ones, then it is, of course, supporting the ideas and the agenda of Satan. But what is Babylon or Babel? You see that Babylon is the entire area, and Babel was the capital city of Babylon. Now a ruin near Hilla in Iraq, late 14th century. This is etymologic online here. From late Latin, from Hebrew Babel, from Akkadian Bab Ilo, the gate of God. So it has something to do with God. Which God? From Bab, gate, and Ilo, God. And there is also another reference which I would like to make. It is this. Yeah, it's Bab El. Everything which ends with El has a reference to be something of divinity. For example, Elohim. For example, Immanuel. For example, Gabriel or Michael, etc., etc., etc. You see, the ending or the verb el means something of divine. You can look it up in the Isod. Well, in the beginning, you see the first one, the beginning, God. It's Elohim. Elohim. It's really interesting. I came down that path when I was thinking about, oh yeah, the electric light orchestra could be something to do with the tool for Lucifer, because he was a long time before he was supposed to be the light bearer. But you see that ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra, also has an abbreviation which means ELO. It's also interesting. So it could mean something else. But it's a plural. It means gods, Elohim. Yeah. So it starts with EL in the beginning. Yeah. The name of God starts with EL. And if you go down that path, for example, here in Revelation 12, chapter 12, you will discover that Michael and his angels, yeah, it's also Mikael, yeah, Ale, Hebrew origin, Michael, an archangel, El, yeah, Mikael, yeah, Hebrew origin. So in Hebrew tale, Michael is an archangel, and Michael has the meaning who is like God, yeah. So in the name Michael, if you go down that path, if we would now open the Strong's Concordance, we would also see that it says who's like God. Yeah, so in the name Michael, there is God in it. It has nothing to do with my first name or with Michael Jackson or what else. You see, these are just names being given to ordinary people. Yeah, but when the Bible speaks of these, this is a very important angel here, because he fought against the dragon. So one can only fight against the dragon if he has authority. So Michael and his angels had authority to fight against the dragon. You can only get authority if there is somebody higher in the hierarchy than the dragon. Who could that be? Could only be Jesus Christ. Okay, but that's for another thing. So this is Bab-El, the gate of the gods, with the confusion of tongues. And what do we see here? Europe, many tongues, one voice. Yeah, it is in opposition to the biblical teaching that God confused the tongues at the Tower of Babel. And now Europe is erecting a city or a monument or what else, where many tongues are gathered but speak with one voice. So it's the opposite of the Bible, yeah, which means the adversary is Satan of Jesus Christ, or of God itself, which means here you got the proof that it has a biblical context. Many tongues, one voice. Yeah, and the confusion of tongues, tongues. Yeah, see, tongues. Many tongues, one voice, and here confusion of tongues. As a punishment for the heretic in the eyes of the Lord. Okay, let's move on. You see, Babel was a big city. city comes from late Latin, means citizenship, condition of rights of a citizen membership in the community, and is let's say is a large and important town nowadays. But nowadays, for the really big cities, you call them metropolitan areas, which comes from the Greek metropolis, which means the seat of an archbishop. Okay, I think it is archbishop. I'm not quite sure if it is only a bishop or an archbishop. I mean, it is an
correct. I think you're right,
okay.
Michael. It's a hierarchy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So cities, a large and important town. The Latin word for city was urbs, U-R-B-S. Interesting, huh? But the resident of that cities was a civis. Yeah, civitas seems to have replaced urbs as Rome lost its prestige. Yeah, so urbs was once a Latin word for city. Interesting, huh? When you come down to I found that interesting. But you see that. Do you believe in coincidences? This is Peter Bruegel's depiction of the Tower of Babel in 1563, and this is Louis Weiss building seat of the European Parliament in Strasbourg in France, about 400 plus years later. What a coincidence, huh? And then they speak with many tongues, one voice. You see, you have to compare the things. So what's special in Babylon or Babel or Uruk, where the civilization supposedly starts? This is a relief of a Neo-Babylonian ruler in front of the Etemenanki ziggurat in Babylon. The piece is highlighted to better show the details. That looks like an artificial tower, doesn't it? With maybe a door or something like that on top. Yeah, wouldn't that be similar to what you think of an ancient temple? You see that at least you would think of that as an ancient priest, with holding a staff, having a kind of fish head on his head and saluting something. Maybe that's a scroll, I don't know. Yeah, but that picture I found interesting. What's a cigarette? A cigarette is the cigarette of Ur is a Neo-Sumerian cigarette was in the city of Ur in present day. The structure was built during the early Bronze Age, 21st century before Christ, but had crumbled to ruins by the 6th century before Christ of the Neo-Babylonian period, where it was restored by King Nabonidus or Nabonidus. Yeah, and that same ziggurat you see here in that famous video, which I have pointed out, from Even at the Doors, Ur of the Chaldees. Okay, so the Sumerian city of Ur of the Chaldeans in modern Iraq was home, he said here in the video, to the patriarch Abraham, and was one of the oldest and technology advanced cities of the ancient world. Yeah, you can look that video up. You see the video is quite long, it's more than 1 hour, and it's full of facts of the interesting ancient history. Okay, so that is the channel is called Even at the Doors. That's also a biblical reference, as you see. So Urukasdim, commonly translated as Ur of the Chaldeans, is a city mentioned in the Hebrew Bible as the birthplace of the Israelite and Ishmaelite patriarch Abraham. You see, there is very, very controversy in the Muslim community. They think that Ishmaelite was the favorite son of Abraham, and therefore you see that it has been twisted around. But you might think that why am I referring now to Ur when I was talking about Babylon? You see, I'm referring to all the ancient temples where they have started all the research into scientific matters. In 1862, Henry Rawlinson identified Ur Kasmin with Tel El Muqaddar near Nasiriyah in southern Iraq. And people in the internet on Good Faith Media, they are questioning the location of Ur. That I found very interesting. Interesting, I found also that site. Yeah, you know, it is in ruins now, but nevertheless, you see that they were really able to build something 5,000 plus years ago, didn't they, Brad? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That you see all these angles here, for example. Yeah, this is not that easy to build. Yeah, I think you have to have some skills. I think that is in very good condition, in surprisingly good condition nowadays. Maybe it has been modified, I don't know, but just to think of that also high buildings are supposed to be skyscrapers, are supposed to be buildings of worship. And what would that now be, the Tower of Babel compared to the European Parliament? Yeah, these are also things who have relations to the Bible and also to buildings or similar to mountains where the gods dwells. This is a partially restored great ziggurat of Ur. Yeah, and this website here, Good Faith, what was it? Good Faith Media. They are questioning that. They are saying that, oh no, maybe it isn't right, the location. Maybe the location was in Turkey and not in at the Chaldeans, because the Bible clearly speaks of Ur of the Chaldeans. Yeah. So what's the point in that? People are always thinking about spreading doubt in that the people are busy with some worldly things. I don't care if it is in Turkey or if it is in Iraq or if it is in what else. I know that the Bible is correct. If you don't have the Bible as your foundation, you will get lost, because you have then thousands of websites claiming this or claiming that and disputing this and spreading doubt all over again. So where was Abraham's, or where is Abraham's birthplace? You see that I don't follow the route of people, I follow the route of the Bible. This is a Bible session, more or less. Okay? Even if that professor is a professor of the Old Testament at the Campbell University Divinity School in North Carolina. You see that everybody is free to have his opinion, but an opinion means not necessarily the truth. It's just an opinion, okay? So this is what I found out, where the first civilization in mankind, which is depicted in the Bible, was located. This is actually the modern day location, or the location of Ur of the Chaldeans. Yeah, that you just have any kind of take notice that it is deep in Iraq. Yeah, so here is Saudi Arabia, here's Israel, Jerusalem. You see here is the Dead Sea. Somewhere here is the place where Moses and the Israelites were traveling, and somewhere here is the mountain where Moses received the 10 Commandments. Okay, now that you just, for the people who are not into geographic content, you have a slight cue where I'm heading to. And this is a depiction of the route that Abraham took. It is Haran is mentioned in the Bible, Babylon as well, and Ur. You see, he has to travel a long way. This is Abraham's journey. Okay. Yeah, you see these are two. Between the arrows here are 200 miles. We are talking about by foot. Yeah, so you need months to travel that. Yeah. For example, here's the mountains, plural, of Ararat, where the Noah's Ark has been found due to the research of Ron Wyatt. And here's the region of Sumer. Here is the Euphrates and the Tigris, the two rivers. And this is Babylon, and there is Ur of the Chaldeans. So we know that the Chaldeans must be somewhere in here. If that is correct, and the Bible speaks of Ur of the Chaldeans, then Ur must be in the Chaldean location area somewhere. So I have to know where the Chaldeans were located. Yeah, this is some other things. They went out together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. This is the way back. You see here is Damascus in Syria, and they are back on their way to Canaan. So in Naziraya, where the ancient ziggurat, so that kind of a temple location, is located. Ur Kasdim is mentioned 4 times in the Hebrew Bible, at Genesis 11, Genesis 15, and Nehemiah 9. Yeah. Ur of the Chaldeans, Genesis 11:28. I looked that up. It's been mentioned here, Kasdi. Occasionally shown as the second form with enclitic meaning towards the Kastites. a descent of Keset, by implication a Chaldean, also an astrologer, as if proverbal of that people into Chaldea. So it has a reference in the Hebrew tale and in the Strong's Concordance of Chaldea. There's no other way around that. It has to be in Chaldea, in my understanding. Okay. All the Septuagint, they do not include the term Ur. You see that I'm not going to the Septuagint because it is of Greek origin, and they didn't wrote the Bible or the chapters or the books in the Old Testament in Greek.
Yeah, by the way, just so everyone knows, if you ever see capital L, capital X, that is the Septuagint.
Yeah, it means 7. L is 50, X is 10, which means 70.
Okay.
You mean that?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. That would.
Oh yeah, Roman numerals at 7.
Yeah, Roman numerals. Yes, that's what I just thought when you were speaking. Okay. Okay. Even in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, it's been said that our father Abraham, when he was in Mesopotamia, it speaks clearly of Mesopotamia, then he came out of the land of the Chaldeans. So I think that I'd say that the Chaldeans have something to do with Mesopotamia, don't you, Brad? And not with the Turkey or somewhere else. You see that Turkey is west of Babylon, and Ur is around the area, so there are hundreds of miles apart. So let's make a few interesting thoughts here. Let's skip it in that place, because that people are also always being confused with all locations and numbers and chronology in the Bible. They think partly worldly and partly biblically, and so there is a high danger of mixing it up. There was a certain James Ussher, the Archbishop of Armagh and Primate of all Ireland, and he made the calculation, and he found out that during the roots of the depiction of the root of Jesus, he proposed the date of the creation of 4004 before Christ, which is not very much different of other people, for example, Johannes Kepler and Sir Isaac Newton. And if you are into science, I think you have to know these two men here. Okay, so you see that that's more like 4,000 years before Christ, which means that our Earth at the moment is about 6,020 plus years old. Okay, so he was using Abraham's migration for that calculation methods. And this section, this is Wikipedia quoting, is easy to calculate using the chronological date in Genesis 5 and 11, where we just spoke and found out that is Ur of the Chaldeans, which gives an unbroken male lineage with numbers of years from the creation to Abraham being called out of Ur of the Chaldeans. Yeah, there you got it again. Ussher used the chronology found in the Masoretic text instead of the alternative chronology found in the Septuagint. You see that I think he was quite a clever guy to use the original Masoretic text. Okay, then he just calculated something else. So when was the migration to Solomon's temple, and when was the period of the Babylonian captivity, etc., etc., etc. So he used mainly the Bible for that, but he has also been including some other scientific calculations methods. For example, he chose the year 5 before Christ as Christ's birth year because the historian Josephus indicated that the death of Herod the Great occurred in 4 BC. So you see that there are minor tasks here. If it was 5 BC or 4 BC or something else, because the problem is that you cannot only rely on one worldly historian. Okay. For the Gospel of Matthew to be correct, Jesus could not have been born after the date. Yeah, the problem is you don't rely only on the Gospel of Matthew, but also on the indications of Josephus. Then therefore, I would like to don't go into that subject because first of all, I haven't evaluated it. And secondly, you see that you have to use several sources to back something up. And if it is not the Bible has been backed up by numerous scholars, by numerous people who have translated the King James Bible. There was a bunch of more than 30 people who were busy with the translation of the King James Bible, right, Brett?
Yeah, that sounds correct.
Yeah.
Not just one man, but a group
that's my
dedicated
point.
men
that's
that
my point.
were commissioned by the king to do this purpose.
Yeah, and you see that when so many educated people are in the task of putting the Bible into the English translation, you see that I would trust that more than any other single guy or woman or who else who could just be wrong. So I think it is not important that we have one here correct. I think it is important that we know that we were created and that Jesus Christ was the Son of God in the first place. So going on, many scholars propose it had taken place in the spring, the start of the Babylonian, Chaldean, and other cultures chronologically. Yeah, you see, there are many debates of the creation, and you might be surprised that I'm not going into this big time, because we will go into that big time much later on, because in our modern day and age, people are more confused about the creation on earth than there were in the days of Noah and his descendants and the days of Jesus Christ. Yeah, because they had not such a profound or complicated science to distract the people. That is my personal opinion. Yeah, this is just opinion. I'm just marking it as opinion. Yeah, so he is very famous for having the date fixed on 4000 before Christ. So that was just the reason why I was time to pointing out, because he was using the birthplace and the travel of Abraham to do so. And the Bible speaks of, in the first book of Matthew, of the book of the generations of Jesus Christ. That is also one big important step in the calculation of that chronologically of Mr. Russia. Yeah? And in Titus 3:9, there is a warning that things will appear in the future. And for me, it is a warning. Would you like to read it, Brad?
Sure. But avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. Let me repeat that. Titus chapter 3, verse 9. But avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. A man that is an heretic, oh boy, there's a dangerous one. Start talking about heretics. Well, which kind of heretic you speaking of? A heretic of the Word of God, or are you speaking a heretic of the Catholic Church? Okay, a man that is an heretic after the first and second abomination reject, knowing that that is such is subverted and sinneth, being condemned of himself.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been called here admonition, second admonition.
Correct. Admonition. That's
yeah, actually I just wanted to make the point that we don't go into the genealogies for that particular reason, because either you have faith or you don't have any faith. But the point is science the new religion? Especially in the point when it comes down to creation or in science, we have to ask where science was originally debated. And you see that this was Mr. James Ussher. He was a chancellor, and he was born in Ireland. He became professor of theological controversies at Trinity College and Bachelor of Divinity, Doctor of Divinity, Vice Chancellor and Vice Provost, etc. So he was not a guy who was uneducated. Yeah. He became a national figure in Ireland, becoming privy councillor in 1623 and increasingly substantial scholar. A noted collector of Irish manuscripts, he made them available for research to fellow scholars such as his friend Sir James Ware. He was nominated Primate of all Ireland, Archbishop of Armagh in 1625 and succeeded, etc., etc., etc. So we don't talk about somebody who has no education at all. Yeah, we're talking about somebody who really was into the Bible. He was a convicted Calvinist and viewed with dismay the possibility that people he regarded as anti-Christian papists might achieve some sort of power. How right he was, huh, Brett? How right he was. He said, the religion of the papists is superstitious and idolatrous, their faith and doctrine erroneous and heretical, their church in respect of both apostatical, to give them therefore a toleration, or to consent that they may freely exercise their religion and profess their faith and doctrine, is a grievous sin. 1626, about 400 years ago. 400 years ago. Yeah, just yeah, you see Emmanuel, huh? Like that. Yeah, I just want to make a little bit more promotion for this man. He was seen as a Calvinist. He was an archbishop. You see that being a Calvinist surely means he was not in the Catholic Church. In 1640, he left Ireland for England for what turned out to be the last time. In the years before the English Civil War, his reputation as a scholar and his moderate Calvinism meant that his opinion was sought by both king and parliament. Yeah, so this guy has made up the claim that it was starting as at 4004 before Christ. His reported last words were, quote, "O Lord, forgive me, especially my sins of omission," unquote. It sounds like a humble man, if that is correct. Well, that was my little excursion into him, and now we get back to the subject. From about 2000 BC, we're talking about that the Uruk period long was gone. From 2000 BC until the early Hellenistic period, early 3rd century, Babylon was one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. It was marked by political stability and military power under three of the most powerful political dynasties of the ancient Near East. The first dynasty, the Kassite dynasty, and the Neo-Babylonian dynasty. These powerful dynasties often conquered their weaker neighbors and traded with the stronger ones, but they also nurtured scientific thought, some of which is still used today, while other ideas have been discarded or changed dramatically. What is that? Used still today? Scientific thoughts used still today? That would mean that there is science which is at least 2,500 plus years old. Let's go into that. The ancient city of Babylon was located along the banks of the Euphrates River near the modern city of Baghdad in what is now the nation-state of Iraq. During ancient times, the region between and near the Tigris and Euphrates River was known as Mesopotamia, and the area around Babylon was referred to specifically as Babylonia. When the ethnic group known as the Sumerians first brought civilization to Mesopotamia around the year 3100 before Christ, the focal point of Mesopotamian civilization was around the southern Mesopotamian cities of Uruk and Ur. So what does that mean? That was before the flood. Yeah? There was a civilization on earth before the flood, and they had nurtured scientific thoughts in three different dynasties after the flood. Yeah, after the flood, there was scientific thoughts after the flood. But they had a civilization even before the flood. But as the Sumerians gradually faded from history in the late 3rd millennium BC, the epicenter of Mesopotamian civilization shifted north to the city of Babylon. So from Uruk or Ur to Babylon, north. In the early second millennium before Christ, an ethnic group known as the Amorites emerged from the desert to conquer Babylon and established the first dynasty of Babylon. The Amorites adopted many of the cultural traits and tastes of the Sumerians to give Mesopotamian civilization a certain degree of continuity and some of their leaders proved to especially well suited for kingship. Hammurabi ruled from 1792 to 1750, was the best known and most accomplished kings of the dynasty. Hammurabi conquered most of Mesopotamia and had commissioned the so-called law code of Hammurabi, but he also patronized institutions that fostered scientific thoughts.
Michael, I just want to go back to the second sentence in the second paragraph. The Amorites adopted many of the cultural traits and tastes of the Sumerians to give Mesopotamian civilizations a certain degree of continuity, and some of their leaders proved to be especially well suited. So I just wanted to underscore for you your future pronunciation, Michael, the word continuity.
Okay.
And it's a continuation from one to the next. Yes.
Yeah, that I know, but sometimes it's hard to pronounce the things, especially if you're not.
It is. Oh, I understand. I just want to make sure that anyone listening knows that this is the case, and that's really what we're trying to show here is the continuity. So, just wanted to make sure we got that in there, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you see, I'm very rarely using that word. Yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah. But my point is that everywhere I look, I find scientific thoughts. Yeah, I find science. We are talking about 7050 before Christ was born. 7050 plus 2020 makes about 3,770 years. Can you imagine? Yeah, scientific thoughts. Okay, this is the Code of Hammurabi. Yeah, this is a prologue. I have copied that from an archive document. You see that was engraved. Yeah, it was not written, but it was engraved. Yeah, the Code of Hammurabi is a Babylonian legal text composed around 7050. It is the longest, best organized, and best preserved legal text from the ancient Near East. It is written in the Old Babylonian dialect of Akkadian, purportedly by Hammurabi, the sixth king of the first dynasty of Babylon. The primary copy of this text is inscribed on a basalt or diorite stele, 2.25 meters to 7 feet and something tall. The stele was discovered in 1901. Etc., etc. The stele now resides in the Louvre Museum. Sure, these old museums, they just serve the purpose for displaying all these pagan religion artifacts. Yeah, this is a very old religion artifact, or it is a state artifact. Actually, it's the law of Hammurabi, so from the first dynasty of the Babylonians. These were the laws. The laws are casuistic, expressed as if ... then conditional sentences. How revealing, Brett. Yeah? So casuistry existed 1,750 years before Christ. It is not an invention of the Greek. And it is also a famous example for using casuistry in how to say it in pagan communities. Yeah, it is not positive, negative. Just to say it in non-Christian communities, they are using casuistic laws. Okay. There was also much discussion of this influence of the Mosaic law. I don't remember that there is, in the Ten Commandments especially, there is no casuistic. It's just been said what is correct. It does not say about any punishment, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So, the US Capitol has a relief portrait of Hammurabi alongside those of other lawgivers, and there are replicas of the stele in numerous institutions, including the headquarters of the United Nations in New York City and the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. I think that is right in the face. Why should the United States Capitol display a portrait of the temporary law? Give me just one clear explanation, please. Why should it be displayed at the United Nations in New York City? Or even at the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, where we know where the Pergamon altar and the gate of Ishtar is displayed, and we absolutely know from Revelation chapter 2 that this is the place where Satan dwelt. Yeah, I think you see that something about humanism or something about their laws must be of very interest for the United States Capitol and the United Nations and the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. So they must have something in common. They display ancient laws. Why do they do that? I thought they were just ruled by the people, Brett.
Well, certainly when you look at the Bible, I think it explains that situation very well. Very well.
You mean Revelation 17 with the kings of the earth?
Well, yeah, specifically also, you know, in the very context of Mystery Babylon.
Yeah.
Great. The mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. You know, she's got to, you know, this is how I say it often, Michael, just to be blunt and to the point, that Satan likes to leave his mark. That's his mark.
Yeah.
He marks his territory. That's what I want to say. Satan marks his territory. And he does it through his orders, like the Freemasonic order and the many different orders that follow that, like the Order of Malta and others, you know, many, many, many others. Order of the Red Cross. You know, it goes on and on and on and on.
I inserted here the display of one of the thumbnails of these sessions. This is called Science is the New Religion, with a spiral, which was also kind of goddess in Egypt, but that would be too far now to go into that context. But is science the new religion or is it not? My question simply is, if Babel or Babylon is the apostate church, which is clearly depicted and clearly been said in the Bible, right? Then Babylonian science being transported and being written down and being taught by their high priest and scribes becomes a pagan science as well. Would you agree on that?
Of course.
Yeah, so
it's all about promoting paganism. That's right.
Yeah.
Because when you are a pagan, then you are what we deem as worldly or satanic, actually.
So when Babylon is the mother of harlots, and we have spoken extensively of the scribes and of the high priests, which were also the rulers, and we talk about the Ur and the ziggurat and the priest. When you remember at the beginning of the session the depiction of the priest and the stairs and the tower, you see that all the men with the real knowledge, and science means knowledge, are the high priest, and therefore they hand it over to the scribes to report it to the next generation and to history. So then it means that Babylonian science becomes a pagan science as well. And as the Israelites, the believers in Jesus Christ, or the believers in the Almighty God, or the holder of the Ten Commandments, were in captivity both in Egypt and later in Babylonia, Babel. Yeah, so that means they have been under the yoke of Egypt. They have been under the yoke of Babylon, and if Babylon is the mother of harlots, yeah, I like to get back to the Bible here. I have to look it up in the Revelation, actually, to back my claim. I think it was I think it was chapter 18. Yeah. The voice of harpers and musicians, of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more in thee, and no craftsman, however crafty shall be found more in any of thee, and the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more in all of thee. And the light of the candle shall shine no more all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and all of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for all thy sorceries were all nations deceived. We know that sorceries is been translated into the Greek as pharmakeia. Now, what do you think that when the Bible speaks so negative of Babylon, that great city Babylon be thrown down? What do you think is the connection between science and religion in Babylonia? So my question was, or my initial thought was, what is the result if you type into a search engine Babylonian science? We know that Babylon stands for apostate church. So Babylonian science must also stand, because it was handed over to priests and scribes, it must also stand for wrong science, or for pagan science, or for idols and worshipping, correct?
Yeah, idolatry, in other words.
Idolatry. Oh, now look at this, please. The first one who comes up is Babylonian astronomy. Stop calling the Babylonian scientist. Huh? Babylonian astronomy was not an imperfect science, but a self-contained intellectual framework woven into the rest of their culture. Yeah? How was science practiced in ancient Babylon? dailyhistory.org. The answer is, ancient Babylonian thinkers were outstanding. I have to. Computer just was storing. How was science practiced in ancient Babylon? Ancient Babylonian thinkers were outstanding mathematicians, as they were the first people to use fractions, which they used to build advanced siege weaponry to parcel out the limited farmable land in their kingdom. The Babylonians were also among the earliest people to develop the study of astronomy, and along with astrology, which was considerably different for them than it is today. Isn't that interesting? Babylonian science means mathematics, astronomy, and astrology. The ancient Babylonians were indeed a people who understood scientific thinking, but their concept of science differed dramatically from the modern view, or even that of the Greeks, because all of their science was used for practical applications. There was no such thing as Aztec science in ancient Babylonia. Well, that is just an opinion here. But if you really type in Babylonian science, you come up with mathematics, with astronomy, astrology. Yeah. Astronomy means the things which are happening in the heaven. In the heaven? What is the first chapter of the Bible, the Genesis, are talking about? How does everything start? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So the first thing, according to the Bible, which was created by the Almighty God, was heaven. Haha. So isn't it obvious that all the cultures, not only the Babylonian, but all the cultures are looking above the heaven at the place of a god, or of God himself? Yeah. Shamahim, it's been translated from Hebrew. Shamahim, the sky, air, and astrologer, heaven. Yeah. So somebody who is watching the sky means you are doing astronomy. What is astronomy? Astronomy has been depicted as watching the sky, and it's been translated as a natural science from Greek, the science that studies the law of the stars. Oh, you got laws. That would mean, the laws of the star would mean there is no coincidences. Huh? It didn't happen by oops, something and something out of chaos. Yeah. So there must be laws. There are laws of stars. Interesting. How they are. Who created the law of stars, Brad? Who could that be? You see that the regular explanation of the Big Bang means that something came out of nothing, or that nothing was there in the first place, and it just was being.
Well, Michael, I can just simply tell you that the Bible states that the heavens are for his glory, for Jesus Christ and the Father in heaven. That's his glory. So when we look to the heavens, it's simply to prove that God is God, and he's far above man, and he created all things. I mean, it's simple, really, but you know, when you have science involved, then, man has to get in there and explain it all because God doesn't exist, see?
Yeah, sure. And that's the thing. But isn't it interesting that in all religions, if you go, you see that
In other words, they've taken away our simplicity, Michael, in this world. You're no longer allowed to have simplicity.
Yeah, sure. You remember of the quote, she blinded me with science. To blind someone with science means to distract somebody with complicated explanations.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. So it has to be complicated so that nobody understands something and says, I don't know anything about it. I need an expert to explain it to me. Yeah, that's what the big difference is to the Bible. Actually, Jesus Christ in the Sermon on the Mount, he speaks explicitly and very, very simple so that everybody can understand him. Now, if you speak very complicated, then I think maybe the situation could be that your agenda is that nobody understands you, and that then you can afterward twist the words and you say that, oh no, I didn't mean by that. You just understood me incorrectly. But the law of the stars is a natural science. A natural science, a science of the natural world that studies celestial objects and phenomena. It uses mathematics, physics, and chemistry in order to explain their origin and evolution. Origin and evolution. Ooh! Yeah. Objects of interest include planets, moons, stars, nebulae, galaxies, and comets. Yeah. And now, astronomy is one of the oldest natural science. The early civilization in recorded history made methodical observations of the night sky. These include the Babylonians, Greeks, Indians, Egyptians, Chinese, Maya, and many ancient indigenous people of the Americas. Yeah, and that's my point is everybody relates to, there is something on top of us, there is something supreme, and they reign in the sky or above us. From above, and if you are dying, then you go back to the earth, or you will become dust, and you will be buried under the earth. You see, there is a hierarchy above, so heaven, then just alive means on the earth, or dead, which means under the earth. It's quite simple, but it is that simple in the majority of the ancient religions. They see that God is reigning from above. And so this is the observation of things in the sky. It's called astronomy. And there is also a Babylonian science called astrology. Yeah? You see, first things first, the Vatican Observatory, 10 years, celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope. Yeah. Also, they are watching the skies. What are they doing, the Vatican? They are doing astronomy. Simple like that. Simple as like, very simple. They're doing the same as all the ancient religions. And the Bible just said that was God created everything in the beginning. He created heaven and the earth. So that means that heaven came first. And the explanation of the things, the physical and mathematical explanations, is called astronomy. So when you really want to know when the moon will reappear, or when the star what star is doing this movement, or how this nebula is called, then you have to use astronomy. You have to use very sophisticated tools to look at the sky. You see the sheer size of that observatory. And so this is as old as science can be, is watching the skies and predicting where it all came from and what's it all about and maybe how the future will look like. And the explanation of stars in the ancient times as seen as gods and messengers and signs for the future is called astrology. For example, you got here a so-called horoscope, which means watch, a display of the hour of birth. That means horoscope. This is the root of the horoscope, which in Latin is called radix, R-A-D-I-X, which means the root, yeah, like a root of the tree. Yeah, this is from Mr. Kepler, who also calculated the supposed beginning of the creation of Earth, together with Mr. Isaac Newton and together with Mr. James Ussher of Ireland. And this is a horoscope of Mr. Wallenstein, who was a famous general, soldier, commander-in-chief in the Middle Ages. Yeah, you see, this is an ancient one. There are more modern ones. Now you see here a sign of the sun. This is a simple circle with a dot in it. You see here a sign of Cancer, which is just 69, like a 69. Yeah, it's a sign of Cancer. This the 2 stands for Gemini. These are the horns of the Aries, etc., 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 etc. Yeah, this is Sagittarius, the arrow. Yeah, this is Scorpio. This is Libra. Yeah, these are 12 areas. It's called the 12 houses. And this is from 1608, yeah? 1608. So if you think that Mr. Kepler was just a scientist, oh, you see, he used Babylonian science as well, because he used the horoscope. Interesting, huh? So what's astrology? In Babylon, as was the case in every pre-modern society, religion and science were mingled. Ha! What is the name of the show? To the point where it was often difficult, if not impossible, to separate the two. The primary deity of Babylon was Marduk, who was associated with a planet known today as Jupiter. So that it has been called Jupiter today is simply the fault or the cause of the Roman Empire. Otherwise, you would say Marduk. That Marduk was preeminent, though, throughout the year, but during the New Year's festival, known as Akito in the Akkadian language, Babylonians from all classes were expected to honor the god of the 5th planet. The priest would parade the sacred cult statue of Marduk to all the temples before being placed in the restricted sanctuary for another year. The mixture of religion and science would continue and become more pronounced in the later Babylonian dynasties. The mixture of religion and science would continue, quote unquote.
Isn't that interesting how they tell you, Michael, in that last explanation, that more or less, well, we took science from Babylon and we're using it today.
Yeah.
And we're justified. Sure. Yeah, go back just a little bit for a second. There was a sentence in there. Yeah, right here. In Babylon, as was the case in every pre-modern society. Well, what are they talking about here? Every pre-modern society? Oh, the Dark Ages. Religion and science were mingled to the point where it was often difficult, if not impossible, to separate the two. Yes. So when the people were inspired of God to reform the indoctrination the church had suppressed the people so long they couldn't take it anymore, and Martin Luther rose up as one of many people that wanted to reform. And that spirit of reform is gone today. We don't have any spirit of reform because we have a repressed people that are again entangled in the yoke of bondage. And the Bible speaks of this in Galatians chapter 4 to the very beginning of chapter 5, which we'll go into later possibly. But wow, Michael, it couldn't be more precise.
Then just explain me, as a Lutheran or as a Bible-believing Christ, what is modern Babylon? Which city is Babylon the Great Whore, the mystery Babylon today?
Oh, that's obvious.
That's obvious. So that means that we could exchange the world.
Yes, right. In Rome. Yes, because today it is the Babylon of there we are. Yes, we can change that to our context, because it's they took out the Reformation. They don't teach the Reformation. They don't want to show that God has a real purpose for man. See? No, because man has a purpose for man first. And we're gonna kick God out of here and become a usurper. See, that's our purpose in life, is to be vessels of destruction.
Yeah, I'm just exchanging the words here. You see, if Babylon is really Rome, if it is really Rome, then we have only to exchange here from the past to the present. And Correct. Then the sentence reads, in Rome, we can delete that. In Rome, religion and science are mingled to the point where it is often difficult, if not impossible, to separate the two. Prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
You see, the biggest planet in our so-called solar system, which is not a solar system, is still called Jupiter. It is still called as it was called in the Roman Empire. It has not bared a new name, or bore a new name. It's not Highty-Pighty or what else, I don't know. It's still Jupiter. That means science is the old and new religion, because you cannot differentiate. You cannot, it is mixed up. It is impossible to separate the two. Even today, it is impossible to separate the two. Because science tells you that the origin and the purpose of life and universe and mankind is actually something else than it is in the Bible. So you have to believe in it. And that means that it is a religion. And if it was hard to separated you 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, then it is more difficult today, as science has a much more approach and a more modern approach and infallible approach today. Think of medicine, think of space travel, think of communication.
I just want to quick point out, Michael's using the word ergo, which is basically therefore, hence science is the old and new religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So nothing new under the sun. Bible is correct.
Yeah, and also it means that Wikipedia told us there were 3 branches. It was mathematics, it was astronomy, and astrology. And
astrology, really. Ooh.
Yeah, sure.
And there's a topic that we could go into extensive detail, Michael.
Yeah, it is very obvious, because you see that you need mathematics to work with astronomy and astrology. It's simply based on ciphers, on numerals, on numbers. This is an old Babylonian math from the tablet. Yeah, it's not an iPod. Yeah, it's a tablet here. It's a stone tablet.
Not an iPod.
Yeah, it's Babylonian math. Yeah, they did not write on books or something like that. Yeah, that's a Babylonian mathematical tablet. Yeah, you see where your tablet is coming from. No new, just the old name actually, the tablet, depicting their functional knowledge of the Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, Essentially, Babylonian science was all practical and always used for the good of the state. Yeah, but not for the good of mankind. For the good of the state, Brad. People have to serve the state. For instance, advanced math was used to divide farmable land into plots that resulted in not only standard rectangular parcels, but also triangular and even polygon plots of land. Yeah? Mesopotamian science in general and Babylonian science specifically was extremely advanced in many ways, especially when one considers the science of contemporary civilizations, but it was devoid of any abstract reasoning such as theorems or proofs. Yeah? Was very advanced. They were not dumbed down. They knew what they're doing. They knew how to. It was all for the good of the state, but not. You see that the good of the state.
Yes, Michael, for the good of the state. Well, they don't tell you that the state is actually run by the Roman Empire. Today.
And
I mean, back then it was the Babylonian Empire.
Sure, and now you see that Babylonian mathematical tablets show that not only they did use multiplication, but that their system counting was sexagesimal, based on 60, and that they were the first people to use fractions. Their geometry was also advanced enough that they used the Pythagorean theorem long before it was known as such. Don't underestimate the intelligence of these people. Interesting, no?
Sure.
300 and 606. What was it?
Oh, the number of a man.
Yeah.
For here is wisdom.
Yeah. I'm just came into my mind. It was Revelation 13, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right.
That sounds reasonable.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Here is wisdom. Yes.
306. Yeah.
Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. Oh, what's the beast? Oh, that's important. We all should know what the beast is, shouldn't we, Michael?
Mm-hmm.
That's the state. The beast is the state, for it is the number of a man. Oh, really? And his number is 666.
Oh, we will go into that very.
That's a Latin terminology to derive the Roman numerals.
Yeah.
The beast, yes.
But to use numerals, you have to know math. Yeah. You do your math.
Yeah. You also have to know Rome as well, because it's
yeah.
Well, that's in our modern time, but we're speaking of Babylon here. So long before our modern Rome was ancient Babylon. Yes. Yeah. So that's what we're speaking of here.
Actually, if Rome is Babylon, you see the founding of Rome took place allegedly 753 before Christ. Okay. So it is not far-fetched to think that when they were in their Babylonian captivity, Rome existed already. And if we know that the scholars and the priests and the scribes were being handed over from each empire to the next empire, so from the old Babylonian Empire with Nimrod to the Persian Empire, then to the Greek Empire, and then to the Roman Empire, you see the church is always the same as an apostate church. And the science they are talking is still not the real knowledge of the Almighty God. So they were handing over also their secrets to the new emperors. The kings have changed, but did the priests change? They actually fled into the next cities, and therefore you see new names derived. But we know, that Zeus in Greek is the same as Jupiter in Rome. So
it's interesting you bring it up in this context, Michael, because if you look at the dates between the switching of the empires, it moves relatively quickly, and then all of a sudden you come to Christ, and then we have 2,000 years of history in Rome. We didn't have 2,000 years of history in Greece, nor Medo-Persia.
Mm-mm.
How much did we have in Babylon? Quite a bit, actually. So Babylon and Rome are the two big ones as far as history is concerned. I think Medo-Persia and Greece went by very quickly, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah. But you see that usually it has been said that the deportations to Babylon took place around 600 before Christ. Yeah, but that was a time when Rome was still founded.
Correct.
If the date is correct, 753. So what makes you think that that in Rome when Babylon fell?
But that's interesting you say that, because in the beginning of our session today, Michael, you mentioned Neo-Babylonian or something.
Yeah.
So could that be the period? Would it be a Neo-Babylonian period that
let's go back into
Rome
that.
came about? There. Oh, that's what you're looking for. Interesting.
Yeah.
You actually have the date.
Yeah, and you see that Rome was founded allegedly by Romulus and Remus. Yeah.
Yes.
Romulus and Remus, who never supposedly existed. Rome's foundation took place 753 BC.
So even before the Neo-Babylonian dynasty.
Yeah, that's my point. You see, there are at least 150 years between. So Rome still was a small city.
Yeah, that's right.
If you look it up, you see you cannot have any name and date accessible in your brain. Founding of Rome, you see, 7 myths, legend, myths, founding myths, 753. Yeah, the most familiar date given to the foundation of Rome, 753, was derived by the Roman antiquarian Titus Pomponius Atticus and adopted by Marcus Terentius Varro. Yeah.
Varionian, how do you pronounce that? Varionian chronology.
753 before Christ suggests that it has become the most commonly accepted date. Let's look if they have something to tell about Babylon. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
Nothing happens here. Just move on. Nothing to see.
We're down the rabbit hole.
Nothing to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my point. You see that when they were in captivity, Rome still existed, but it grew and grew and grew and grew. Yeah.
Well, it's tough, looking at all of this old history, because what's corrupt and what's pure? That's the question.
Sure, but it has never been the big capital city from the beginning, from the start. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Correct. Absolutely right. It started out very humble, just like all small.
Yeah, it cannot be the capital city of some important city, because at the moment at this time, you see, it wasn't of that importance.
No, it wasn't at all. No.
Yeah. The name of Rome, and we also know that it was not Rome; it was Stur. At the beginning, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Stur means Saturn. Yeah, it's also a name of a planet, but that's too early to go into that. You see that we cannot do more than 35 pages in one session. Now you know why I need 100 sessions like that to cover more than 3,000 pages, because it's just it goes left, right, left, right, left, right. But if you really use your brains, then you come down to the conclusion that nothing has happened if Babylon is Rome. Babylonian astronomy and astrology. Yeah. I think we should make a break here for the upcoming session, because I think it is simply otherwise too much to concentrate, to focus on that kind of topics more than 90 minutes, also including me, because I have to have a break for a few minutes and to drink something to go into the next thing, which is, of course,
Sure.
you could guess it, Babylonian science, part 3, astronomy and astrology. And on that occasion, I'd like to thank my beloved brother Brett for helping me out for pronunciation and for other certain interesting points, and for all the help and also the spreading of the word on his channel, Brett Norman. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next time. God bless and Maranatha.
Thank you, Michael. And I had mentioned Galatians, the second half, maybe, or second 2/3 of chapter 4 into chapter 5. And remember now, you can do your own study on this. I don't have to recite the whole Bible for you. Galatians 5, chapter 1 says, "Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free." Yes, he hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. He's very specifically speaking of this whole topic we were just on, the Babylonian bondage. And it continues today. We're not to be entangled with it. And like I said, study Galatians chapter 4 on your own. You'll get a lot more out of it rather than me trying to read through it quickly. It doesn't do any good. Because we all have to study to show ourselves approved. That is, those of us that have Christ in our heart and resound in his law and use his light that he gives us, because he reveals truth in advance. And we all should know, and we should all be aware that we need to bring this gospel to God's people who are scattered throughout all nations. We have no idea who these people are until they start hearing the word of God, and then they remember. And that's all there is to it. So, blessings in our Messiah who died 2,000 years ago, and by his blood, our sins are washed and cleansed. Maranatha.